Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving straight into one of the most complex and frankly consequential geopolitical standoffs of our time, the escalating conflict between Iran and Israel. We're going to neutrally unpack this whole situation, looking at the historical timeline, the absolutely unprecedented recent military strikes, and the widespread global impact of this historic friction. Why are Iran and Israel enemies? And how did their conflict bring the Middle East close to a wider war? That is the central question we're exploring today. Because to really understand how a regional rivalry pushed an entire hemisphere to the brink, we have to look past the daily headlines.
Okay, let's dive into this and look at the roots of the conflict.
To really get this, we have to rewind to 1979. That year fundamentally altered the balance of power in the Middle East. The Iranian Revolution didn't just swap out a government, it installed a completely new ideological regime, one that vehemently opposed Israel's existence. And over the decades that followed, that ideological stance morphed into a deeply calculated strategy. See, instead of fighting a traditional state-on-state war, Iran started cultivating this massive network of allied factions. By providing critical financial and logistical support to groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon back in the 80s and later Hamas in Gaza, Iran essentially extended its military reach right up to Israel's doorstep. For Israel, this complete transformation of its immediate neighborhood cemented a state of perpetual, critical national security alert, forcing them to constantly adapt to threats that were decentralized but deeply interconnected. And this brilliantly illustrates the two distinctly opposed geopolitical realities on the ground. On one hand, Iran's strategy centers on what's called the Axis of Resistance. It's a sprawling, integrated network of proxy groups and militias that acts as a deterrent and lets them project regional power without triggering a direct conventional war. In stark contrast, Israel operates on a doctrine of absolute security and preemptive defense. To counter this encroaching network, Israel focuses on highly targeted strikes, taking out weapons supply chains, neutralizing key militant commanders, and developing incredibly advanced, multi-layered air defense systems like the Iron Dome. It is basically a continuous, high-stakes game of geopolitical chess, where Iran's expanding network directly dictates Israel's defensive focus, resulting in a decades-long shadow war fought largely across neighboring territories. That historical framework brings us directly to Section 2, the 2024 to 2025 escalation. For years, like we just talked about, this conflict stayed primarily in the shadows. But in 2024 and 2025, that unspoken boundary completely shattered. The region experienced a sudden, severe escalation, moving rapidly away from proxy skirmishes into unprecedented state-on-state confrontation. This period was marked by a massive, concentrated series of missile and drone attacks launched directly from Iranian territory toward Israel, a historic first. We're not talking about isolated incidents. These involved hundreds of projectiles, including super sophisticated ballistic and cruise missiles designed to overwhelm those advanced defense systems. The response was a series of swift, retaliatory Israeli strikes aimed directly at strategic Iranian military targets, like air defense systems and weapons facilities deep within Iran. This relentless back-and-forth exchange of overwhelming military power literally threatened to ignite the entire region in a matter of days. But, these two nations don't exist in a vacuum. As this unprecedented volley of direct strikes unfolded, an immediate push-and-pull dynamic activated on the global stage. The United States, alongside a coalition of Western and regional allies, intervened aggressively to prevent a broader war. And this wasn't just a diplomatic scramble, it was a highly coordinated military and strategic effort. Neighboring Arab states and Western militaries in the region actively participated in tracking and intercepting those projectiles, basically forming a massive, integrated defensive shield. Behind closed doors, international powers pulled literally every diplomatic lever they had, using intense back-channel communications to pressure both sides to calibrate their responses and stop this tit-for-tat retaliation from spiraling into a catastrophic multi-front war. Let's move to and see how this builds in Section 3, Global and Human Impact. Because war is never just an abstract concept confined to military briefings, right? Its true cost is always borne by people. The humanitarian impact of these enduring hostilities is just staggering. Decades of tension and these recent surges in direct violence have resulted in tragic, widespread civilian casualties and the sheer devastation of crucial civilian infrastructure across multiple border regions. Entire communities have been displaced, their lives completely upended by a conflict they simply do not control. Simultaneously, the shockwaves of this localized suffering severely disrupt the entire global system. Any threat of massive regional instability in the Middle East immediately spooks global markets, especially around vital shipping lanes like the Strait of Hormuz.
When these tensions spike, global oil prices spike right along with them, directly impacting the economic stability of nations thousands of miles away. So the fallout stretches from the families living in the immediate crossfire all the way to the global energy markets that power our daily lives.
Which leads us to our final and honestly perhaps most important section, the push for peace. So, the crucial point is this. Despite the deep-rooted ideological shifts of 1979, that complex web of regional proxies, and the severe direct military escalations of 2024 and 2025, the reality on the ground demands a change in strategy. Resolving this crisis ultimately requires prioritizing diplomacy, peace, and dialogue over military conflict. Look, military deterrence and advanced weaponry can manage immediate threats for sure, but they have repeatedly proven incapable of delivering long-term stability. A truly sustainable path forward requires exhaustive diplomatic efforts, whether that's through quiet, indirect back-channel negotiations, robust international mediation, or leveraging economic incentives. It is a stark reminder that true regional security really cannot be achieved through perpetual escalation. And that leaves us with this final, provocative thought to consider today. Will diplomacy prevail, or is the region destined to repeat this cycle of escalation? As we keep digging into this, keeping this question at the forefront of our minds is absolutely essential while we watch these historic events unfold. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions and keep learning.